Maya Williams, 32 years old, is a Black woman with a strong soul and a passionate heart. She is not only a successful entrepreneur in Greenville, a small town in the southern United States, but also a symbol of resilience and determination to overcome all barriers. From a young age, Maya knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she never let prejudices or challenges defeat her. Despite facing scrutinizing looks and biased remarks within the community, Maya kept her faith in her ambition for success. She once shared with her closest friend, "I don't want to just survive, I want to shine to be recognized for all that I can do." Maya embodies many Black women across America who fight every day to claim their rightful place in society. Maya's story is not just a personal one, it is a story about belief, perseverance, and above all, a reminder that no matter how many challenges we face, inner strength will guide us to overcome everything. Let's begin this journey together to better understand the life, the person, and the challenges Maya Williams faces. Before we move into the main content, please leave us a comment telling us where you are listening to this story and what time it is. That will help us understand how far the story has traveled and how many people it has touched. So let's get started. Greenville, a small town in the southern United States, carries a deep history of racial segregation and wounds from the past that have yet to heal. From the era of slavery through the Jim Crow years to today, Black communities here have lived under the shadow of discrimination and injustice. The streets of Greenville still hold stories of families torn apart of silent but painful conflicts. One early summer afternoon, Maya sat with her mother, Gloria, on a wooden bench in front of their house, quietly watching people pass by. Gloria told Maya about the hard times, "My child, when I was young, just stepping out without lowering your head was seen as a challenge, but I want you to be different. You must stand tall and walk confidently." Maya looked at her mother, her eyes full of admiration and understanding. "I know, Mom, but standing tall in people's eyes isn't always easy." Gloria smiled. "That's why you must be stronger than anyone else." Although time has passed, old prejudices still hide in every glance, every subtle but meaningful word from the people of Greenville. One day, Maya entered a small coffee shop downtown. A middle-aged man looked at her and quietly said to the person beside him, "Is that the Williams girl? I thought she'd know better." Maya heard this, her heart sinking a little, but she didn't let it stop her, because she knew that change must start from herself and the community. The story of Greenville's history and present is the foundation for us to better understand the challenges Maya faces not just as an individual, but as part of a system built over centuries. Come with me to explore this vivid, multidimensional, yet complex social picture. In Greenville, racism no longer shows as open violence or clear legal barriers as before. Instead, it seeps deeply through everyday actions, words, and attitudes. Maya Williams, though successful and prominent in the community, still often feels that difference. One autumn morning when Maya entered a small supermarket near her home, she overheard whispered voices around her. One customer said to a friend, "That's the troublemaking Black girl you see." The friend nodded, their eyes glancing quickly past Maya as if she were an alien. Maya ignored them, picked a loaf of bread, and moved toward the checkout counter. But her mind was troubled. "Why do I have to endure this just because of my skin color?" she asked herself. It wasn't just the scrutinizing looks, but also the unspoken rules imposed on her and other Black people. At work, Maya once heard colleagues say she was too arrogant for expressing strong opinions. One time when Maya proposed an improvement idea, a colleague whispered to someone else, "Who does she think she is speaking up like that?" She understood that no matter how successful she became, there was always an invisible barrier, a wall of discrimination she had to break through every day. During a family gathering, Maya shared these feelings with her mother. Gloria gently replied, "You must remember those things are not the truth about you. They are just the narrow views of others." Maya nodded, but her heart still felt weary. Maya's story is the story of millions of Black people across America who still have to fight not only for their rights, but also for basic respect in life. Subtle racism is a hard-to-detect challenge, yet it deeply affects their psychology and opportunities for growth. From being looked down upon in public services, to being unfairly suspected in stores, or even being treated unjustly in the education and healthcare systems. These situations not only hurt individuals, but also weaken social cohesion and create gaps that cannot be bridged. For Maya, every day is a small battle, but her will never surrenders. I will not let those things define me, she tells herself. I will use my story to make a change. And from these daily experiences, Maya has developed the strength to face a greater challenge, the injustice in the law enforcement system that she will soon have to confront. Let's continue following Maya's story to explore the journey from contemptuous glances to a dramatic court trial. Jack Reynolds, 38 years old, is a police officer who has worked in Greenville for over 12 years. Born and raised in a middle-class family in a suburb, Jack once dreamed of being a protector of justice, a hero in the eyes of the community. But years on Greenville's streets have shaped a different Jack, one full of pressure and sometimes tinged with prejudice. Jack once told a close colleague, "This job isn't for the weak. The pressure weighs heavily on me every day. I have to stay alert, be decisive, even though sometimes I don't know right from wrong immediately." One rainy afternoon, Jack and his patrol team received a report about a possible theft in a multi-ethnic neighborhood. On the way to the scene, Jack couldn't hide his worry. "I know that in these areas, everything is more sensitive. Even a small action can cause an incident." That pressure made Jack increasingly rigid, overly cautious with Black people and minorities. He once said to a close friend, "I'm not against anyone, but I have to keep myself safe first. There are people just waiting to exploit a slip-up." During training sessions, Jack often showed frustration with lessons about cultural diversity and racial awareness. He believed those theories were too soft and did not reflect the real dangers on the streets. A colleague recalled Jack always said, "I have to be strong, tough to survive." But sometimes that toughness turned into hostility. The mix of job pressure, misconceptions, and lack of emotional control skills made Jack prone to negative reflexes, especially when facing people like Maya. Once during an internal meeting, the boss directly warned Jack, "You need to change your approach. Police are not just about power, but about responsibility to serve and protect everyone." Jack nodded, but his eyes revealed doubt and inner conflict. For him, every interaction with Black people was not just a duty, but a challenge he had never fully overcome. In Jack's mind, Maya represented a special challenge, a confident Black woman who would not be easily subdued, something he never knew how to handle properly. Jack's story is proof of the consequences when a work environment and personal perception are influenced by prejudice, lack of proper training, and psychological support. And from here, the cracks in the relationship between police and the Black community in Greenville began to show clearly. Let's move into the next part of the story where Maya and Jack have a fateful encounter on a path that will change everything forever. Jack Reynolds was not born with prejudice. It was the result of his upbringing and the environment that affected him daily at work and in his personal life. Born in a predominantly white neighborhood, Jack grew up in a family that was not wealthy but well provided for. His parents, hardworking laborers, always taught him to be strong and to know how to protect himself. However, when he entered the police force, Jack began facing a completely different world where vigilance and suspicion became survival instincts. In a conversation with a close colleague, Jack confided, "Being a cop is a battle, not with criminals, but with the distrust of the very community we serve." He explained that during his years of work, he witnessed many colleagues being attacked and insulted simply because of misunderstandings or prejudice from the public. Those experiences gradually created a defensive shell in him, an over-alertness that led to seeing Black people as potential threats rather than citizens to protect. Jack recalled an incident where he was harshly criticized by a group of Black youths while on patrol. "Sometimes I felt like I was under full confrontation, not just work-related, but personal hostility." Jack said his eyes briefly clouded with sadness. This caused him to develop a discriminatory mindset as a self-protection mechanism to survive in a tense and dangerous environment. Moreover, Jack had to face pressure from colleagues and superiors who often judged him by his toughness and decisiveness. He had heard disparaging remarks, "If you're not strong enough, you'll be overwhelmed." This made Jack mistakenly believe that excessive strictness and an uncompromising attitude were the only ways to survive in the police force. One evening, Jack came home late, feeling heavy-hearted. His wife, Emily, gently asked, "Are you okay? Do you realize how much you've changed?" Jack sighed. "I'm just trying to do my job well, but sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing anymore." Emily took his hand and said, You don't have to be so strong. You need to understand and empathize even with yourself. That sentence was like a flicker of light in Jack's mind, but changing his entire perspective and behavior still required a lot of effort. Jack's mentality and prejudice were not just his own story, but represented common challenges for many police officers across America. Lack of deep training and cultural diversity, awareness, lack of psychological support and pressure from the work environment led many to end up like Jack, overly vigilant and lacking empathy. And this resulted in serious consequences when someone like Maya, a successful and dignified Black woman, was treated unjustly just because of those invisible prejudices. When Jack and Maya faced each other, it was not just a meeting between two individuals, but a clash of two worlds, two viewpoints, and above all, an exposure of the injustices in the system. Let's continue telling the story of this fateful encounter where everything will change and which will mark the beginning of a battle for justice and dignity. One weekend evening, light rain fell on the quiet streets of Greenville. Maya Williams had just finished an important partner meeting and was driving home with excitement and full of hope for the future. The streetlights reflected on the wet road, flickering with each rotation of the wheels. Suddenly, red and blue lights flashed behind her, accompanied by the wailing sound of a police siren. Maya immediately knew she was being pulled over. She pulled her car to the side, feeling a bit uneasy inside. "It's just a routine check," she told herself, trying to stay calm. The patrol car approached, the window rolled down, revealing the stern face of Officer Jack Reynolds. "Good evening. Do you know you just ran a red light?" Jack asked, his voice low and rigid. Maya shook her head. "I don't think so, officer. I'm sure I stopped at the light." Jack frowned, his eyes quickly scanning Maya's face, then her car and back again. "Your vehicle registration and driver's license, please," he ordered. Maya slowly took the documents from her purse, but felt Jack's gaze never left her, filled with scrutiny and suspicion. After a moment, Jack asked again, "Where are you headed at this hour?" "Anything unusual?" Maya replied calmly. "I just left a business meeting." "Nothing unusual." Jack wasn't very convinced. He called a colleague on the radio and whispered something Maya couldn't hear clearly. The atmosphere began to tense. Maya sensed coldness, even contempt in Jack's eyes. "You know we are monitoring some suspicious activities around this area." "Can you cooperate?" Jack said. Maya sighed, trying to maintain politeness. "I'm willing to cooperate, but please clarify why I'm being suspected." Jack responded with a cold smile. "We're just doing our job." Inside, Maya felt a rising unease. She sensed this suspicion was not because she did something wrong, but because of something deeper. Their conversation continued. Jack began a more thorough check, scrutinizing every small detail in her documents and car. Maya asked, "Can you tell me exactly what violation I committed?" Jack nodded. "We suspect you're connected to a recent theft. A woman matching your description was spotted." Maya was surprised. "That's not me. I don't know anything about that." Jack ignored her explanation, instead calling more officers and deciding to search the car. Maya requested, "I want to call my lawyer." Jack replied coldly, "We will clarify everything." The search was conducted with an arrogant police attitude, making Maya feel insulted and stripped of her basic rights. Passers-by started to pay attention, their eyes scrutinizing, but no one dared to speak up. Maya told herself, "I have to stay calm. This is not the time to lose control." The tense dialogue and actions went on, resulting in Maya being wrongfully arrested on the spot. While being handcuffed, she looked straight at Jack and said firmly, "You are wrong. I will prove it." Jack responded with a contemptuous look. "We'll see about that." That moment marked a crucial turning point in Maya's life, a battle not only to reclaim justice for herself, but also to change a long-standing, deeply unjust system. Maya was led into the patrol car with handcuffs tight around her wrists, the burning, heavy sensation nearly causing her to collapse. But Maya remained calm, her eyes shining with determination and refusal to surrender. "Can you explain why I'm being arrested?" Maya asked in a low but clear voice, showing her unwavering resolve. Officer Jack Reynolds sat beside her, his cold gaze unable to hide some irritation. "You are a suspect in a recent theft. We have the right to detain you for further investigation." Maya responded, "I've said clearly I'm not involved in that incident. I demand to see a lawyer immediately." Jack smirked, speaking with disdain. A lawyer comes when needed. For now, you must cooperate. Meanwhile, Maya tried to stay calm, recalling lessons about her rights when dealing with the police. You know, I have the right to be informed of the reason for my arrest and the right to contact a lawyer, she said, trying to keep her tone gentle but firm. Jack scoffed lightly, gave no answer, and his eyes gradually grew colder. Another officer came in, seemingly agreeing with Jack's actions, and they began to scrutinize Maya's documents and phone more thoroughly. Maya sensed the tension not only from the officers but also from the bystanders standing around. Some recorded videos on their phones but dared not intervene. When Maya was taken to the station, she still maintained a calm attitude, but inside was a storm of emotions, fear, frustration, and above all, a burning determination to prove her innocence. At the police station, Maya continued to demand a lawyer and refused to answer any questions until one was present. An officer asked, "Do you have anything to say?" "Maybe you can help clarify the matter." Maya replied, "I will only talk when I have a lawyer." The dialogue between Maya and the officers gradually grew tense. She was treated like a real criminal, despite no clear evidence against her. Meanwhile, Jack remained firm, viewing her as a defiant suspect. However, Maya did not allow herself to be defeated. She knew this was not only her personal battle, but also a fight for all those who suffer injustice because of their skin color. In those lonely moments, Maya thought of her family, her loved ones waiting outside, and her husband, Police Chief Elijah Grant, whom she trusted would help her get through this challenge. She silently told herself, "I will not fall. I must stand strong to change something." In response to this incident, some members of the community began to speak out, filming and sharing videos on social media, creating a wave of support for Maya. The videos quickly spread, drawing public attention to the case. However, there were still voices denying her innocence, claiming she was at fault. Maya knew the journey ahead would be long and challenging, but she was not alone. The fight for justice had only just begun. When the jail cell door closed behind her, Maya Williams sat silently in the darkness alone, amid the cold walls of the Greenville police station. Echoing sounds surrounded her footsteps, distant whispers, seemingly stirring the loneliness and anxiety in her soul. In that moment, Maya's mind spun. Memories of the wrongful arrest kept replaying Officer Jack Reynolds' suspicious gaze, the tight handcuffs, the contempt from those around her. She recalled Jack's cold voice when he said she had to cooperate, even though he knew she was innocent. The pain didn't end there. Maya felt clearly the humiliation and loss of her dignity, a successful black woman treated like a criminal just because of her skin color and prejudice. In the darkness, tears quietly flowed. She wondered, why me? Why is justice such a luxury? Maya was not only hurt by the wrongful arrest, but also fearful of the future, whether she could regain her honor, whether the system would listen to her voice. In her mind, these questions burned like smoldering flames, consuming all hope, but also igniting the fire of resilience and determination. The next day, when taken out of the cell for interrogation, Maya still maintained rare calmness. She looked directly into the investigator's eyes and said, "I did not commit a crime. I will fight to clear my name for myself and for all who are oppressed." Those words were not only a declaration, but also a promise to herself and the community. Yet inside, Maya struggled with anxiety, loneliness, and the turmoil between hope and despair. One day, when allowed to make a phone call, she contacted her husband, Elijah Grant, Greenville's police chief. Elijah's voice was warm and comforting. "Maya, you are not alone. I will stand by you, fight with you for justice." Maya replied, her voice choked but strong. "You are my greatest strength. I won't let this injustice destroy us." That conversation helped Maya regain some calm, but the psychological wounds still needed time to heal. The pain caused by racism and police abuse is not only a scar on the spirit, but can lead to long-term consequences, such as depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Psychologists have affirmed that experiences of wrongful arrest and unjust treatment can undermine trust in society, making victims feel isolated and lost. Maya understood this well. She knew that to overcome, she needed not only support from family and friends, but also to speak up for those without a voice. In a brief interview with a local journalist, Maya said, "I want my story to become a voice for all who have been forgotten, treated unfairly just because of their skin color." Those words touched the hearts of thousands, becoming a symbol of courage and the desire for justice in society. But Maya also admitted that every passing day was a continuous struggle with herself, with deep-rooted prejudices and with wounds invisible to the eye. This is the story of a woman strong but imperfect, enduring pain, but standing resilient. Let us move to the next part, where Maya faces society's judgment and the legal system in a dramatic and challenging trial. From the moment Maya's arrest happened, some Greenville residents witnessed the whole event and they could not stay silent. Mary Thompson, a middle-aged woman living a few houses away from the scene, was one of them. That day, she was walking her dog when she saw the patrol car with flashing lights stop next to Maya's vehicle. Immediately, I sensed the officer's attitude was very wrong, Mary recounted with a serious and somewhat upset tone. I heard them speaking loudly. The woman Maya was very polite but was met with coldness and roughness. Mary tried to remember every detail, her eyes betraying worry, as she recalled seeing Maya handcuffed in the street. Also present in the area was James Carter, a young black man who had been harshly checked by the police many times before. James said, "Seeing Maya treated like that, I couldn't help but be afraid for myself. If a successful woman like her can be treated like that, what about me?" James's words were not just personal feelings, but reflected the collective sentiment of the black community in Greenville and many other places. Another person, Linda Brooks, owner of a nearby grocery store, said, "I clearly saw discrimination in the way they treated her. That's not how people who protect justice should behave." Linda recalled that some passers-by filmed with their phones, but dared not intervene out of fear of getting involved. "Just standing and watching is already an act of courage," she said. These were not isolated stories. The silence and lack of intervention from the community created an invisible wall, aiding the persistence of injustice. At a community meeting after the incident, witnesses like Mary and James were invited to share. Mary stood up, her voice trembling but resolute. "We cannot ignore things like this anymore. It's not just one person's fault, but the system that needs to change." James added, "We need to speak up, support each other, so no one has to suffer alone." Applause filled the room, showing the community's unity and determination. The witnesses' stories sparked a wave of support for Maya and drew local authorities' increased attention to issues of racial discrimination and police abuse. These stories were not just accusations, but also proof of the community's power in protecting justice and human rights. The witnesses' voices opened the door for the next steps in Maya's legal battle, giving her more strength and confidence to continue her fight for justice. News about the wrongful arrest of Maya Williams spread quickly throughout Greenville. It was not just an isolated story. It touched deep wounds of racial discrimination and injustice that many quietly endured daily. At Greenville's Central Church, where community members often gathered, Gloria Maya's mother stood before the crowd, her voice full of emotion. "My daughter did not commit a crime. What happened to her is a symptom of a system that needs to change." Her words moved many present, who nodded in agreement. They understood this was not just Maya's story, but the story of an entire community living under the shadow of racism. At a nearby small cafe, a group of social activists and lawyers began organizing an emergency meeting. One of them, Marcus, said, "We cannot let this incident pass as normal. This is a warning and we must act." Maya's story became a hot topic in local and national media. Human rights organizations like NAACP and ACLU got involved, providing legal and media support for Maya. They organized workshops and seminars to raise awareness about racial discrimination in policing. Social media became a powerful tool. Thousands shared Maya's story, creating a justice campaign under the hashtag #OurJusticeForMaya. A female journalist named Sarah shared, "This story is not just about one individual's wrongful arrest. It is a microcosm of a bigger problem in justice within the law enforcement system." Public opinion split sharply. One side supported Maya, demanding transparency and reform in the police force. The other side claimed Maya might have done something wrong, or at least shouldn't overreact. In this context, Black community groups in Greenville organized peaceful marches and protests to speak out for rights and justice. At a press conference, a movement leader said, "We ask for nothing more than fairness and respect. These are basic rights for every citizen, regardless of skin, color, or class." This event drew the attention of local lawmakers, forcing the authorities to respond officially. Police Chief Elijah Grant also publicly supported Maya and pledged to investigate the case with full transparency. However, this response was not enough to calm public opinion. Many still doubted the possibility of change from within the police system. A social activist named Lisa shared, "We need more than promises. Concrete action, strict oversight, and fundamental reforms are necessary." Meanwhile, tensions between community groups and the police were not fully eased. A few minor incidents afterwards showed that division and mutual suspicion remained deep. But Maya's story became a powerful catalyst, opening a necessary dialogue about racism, human rights, and justice. Greenville residents began to realize more clearly the importance of unity and relentless struggle. From here, the community's strength was maximized, becoming a solid support for Maya in her difficult legal journey ahead. Elijah Grant entered the Greenville Police Department meeting room with a serious expression and determined eyes. As police chief and Maya's husband, he understood better than anyone the seriousness of the case. "We cannot let this become the end of the community's trust in the police force." Elijah said, his voice warm but firm. The room fell silent. The veteran officers knew Elijah was a principled man who always prioritized justice and responsibility to the people. He continued, "Maya is not only my wife, but also a citizen deserving protection of her rights. I demand a transparent and unbiased investigation." A young officer named Tom hesitated. "Sir, we are following proper procedures." Elijah interrupted. "Following procedures does not mean we can ignore the truth or dismiss the people's feelings. We have to face the issue head on." He turned toward the media staff recording the press conference. "The Greenville Police Department is committed to change, transparency, and rebuilding trust." In real life, Elijah was not just a leader, but also a warm and devoted husband. In a private conversation with Maya, he said, "Maya, you are my inspiration. We will fight together for justice, not just for you, but for the whole community." Maya looked at Elijah with eyes full of trust and emotion. "You are my support. You help me believe justice will prevail." However, Elijah's role was not easy. He had to balance protecting the force and maintaining the police department's reputation while facing pressure from colleagues in the police union. In closed meetings, many within the force expressed dissatisfaction with Elijah's approach. An older officer warned, "You're pushing yourself too hard, Elijah. Not everyone wants change." Elijah responded calmly and determinedly, "I know, but this is my responsibility. If we don't change the public's trust, we'll be lost forever." At the public press conference, Elijah affirmed, "We will never tolerate any abuse of power or racial discrimination." Those words were welcomed by many Greenville residents as a new beacon of hope. Yet many remained skeptical that one individual could make such a significant difference. Elijah understood the long and difficult road ahead. He always reminded himself, "We must see this through, not allowing injustice to persist." Elijah Grant's presence ignited hope for Maya and the entire Greenville community, a living testament to the power of just leadership and courageous resistance against injustice. Shortly after Police Chief Elijah Grant publicly pledged transparency and fairness, a private meeting between him and Officer Jack Reynolds took place. The small meeting room was packed with tense eyes and heavy atmosphere. Elijah sat at the head of the table, his steady gaze fixed on Jack, the officer who had wrongfully arrested his wife. Elijah began with a serious but sincere tone. "Jack, I need you to understand that your actions toward Maya Williams have caused serious harm, not only to her, but also to the entire police department's reputation." Jack responded with cold eyes and a slightly annoyed voice, "Chief, I was just doing my job. If she's innocent, let the law handle it, and I can't let personal feelings affect my work." Elijah did not shy away. He looked deeply into Jack's eyes and said, "That's the problem. Our job is not only to enforce the law, but to protect justice fairly without bias." Jack retorted bitterly, "I did what was necessary to keep the community safe, but I feel I'm being judged too harshly over one incident." Elijah replied, "Protecting the community doesn't mean abusing power or discriminating. You must realize that toughness doesn't always equal effectiveness." The room grew hotter with sighs and sideways glances, revealing deep conflict. An older colleague whispered beside them, "This is a battle between two perspectives, between tradition and change." Elijah continued, I ask you to cooperate with the investigation and be ready to change to rebuild trust with the community. Jack answered firmly. I will comply with the request, but I don't promise to change my mindset. That dialogue was not just between two men, but symbolized the internal conflict within the Greenville police force. Elijah understood that changing awareness and behavior couldn't happen overnight, but he believed this was the only path to true justice. For ending the meeting, Elijah emphasized, I don't want to see any more actions that damage the police department's honor and the public's safety. Jack nodded, but his eyes still held doubt. The next day, rumors about the confrontation spread within the police force, making the work atmosphere tenser than ever. When Maya heard about this meeting through her husband, she felt somewhat reassured but still worried about the future. Are you sure everything will be all right? She asked Elijah during a video call. Elijah smiled. We're at the beginning, Maya, but I believe with persistence, justice will prevail. The story of Elijah and Jack reflected the larger battle between conservatism and reform within the police force, between oppression and fairness. This confrontation would not only determine Maya's future, but also serve as a significant lesson for the entire Greenville community and the whole United States. Shortly after her release, Maya Williams knew her fight had only just begun. It was not just a battle to clear her name, but also a struggle for justice on behalf of millions who had suffered similar injustices. Maya sat in the family's cozy living room beside her husband, Police Chief Elijah Grant. The dim light from the desk lamp cast a determined glow on her face. Elijah, what should we do now? Maya asked, her voice full of hope, but also fatigue. Elijah looked straight into her eyes and answered firmly, we will find a good lawyer who understands the law, especially cases involving racial discrimination. Maya, you will not be alone. Maya nodded, feeling comforted. The very next day, they contacted Anna Martinez, a well-known attorney famous for lawsuits against racial discrimination in law enforcement. Anna was a strong and passionate woman of color who had helped many families find justice in similar situations. When meeting Maya for the first time, Anna spoke sincerely. Maya, your story is important. We will not let it be forgotten. I will help you bring the truth to light. Maya felt her faith renewed. The first legal meeting took place in a small office filled with books and legal documents. Anna explained the necessary steps to file a lawsuit. First, we will gather all evidence from arrest reports, video footage of the incident, to witness statements. Then we will file the case in court. Maya listened carefully but couldn't help feeling worried Jack Reynolds and the police department can deny everything. Are we sure we can win? Anna smiled gently. The law is not always fair at the start, but with clear evidence and persistence, we can make a difference. In the following days, Maya and her legal team worked tirelessly. They collected videos from security cameras near the scene, contacted witnesses who saw the incident, and gathered recordings of phone calls between Maya and the police. Moreover, Anna helped Maya connect with psychologists to document the psychological impact the incident caused. This way, we can prove not only legally, but also humanely, Anna explained. However, the legal journey was far from easy. The police department and their defense lawyers tried every tactic to delay and discredit Maya. Rumors and criticisms began to spread, attempting to overshadow the truth. But Maya remained steadfast. She knew each difficulty was a challenge to make her stronger and more determined. At a press conference, Maya spoke emotionally. I am not only fighting for myself, I fight for everyone, for those without a voice, for those forgotten by the system. Maya's outspokenness quickly drew widespread attention from local media to social and legal organizations nationwide. Many people began sending letters of support, peaceful protests were organized, and the call for justice grew louder. This was not just Maya's battle, but the start of a larger movement for social justice and law enforcement reform. And in the shadows, Maya continued preparing for the trial, knowing it would be full of challenges, but also hope. After setting the goal, Maya Williams and attorney Anna Martinez embarked on the most important task, gathering evidence to clarify the truth and strengthen the legal case. In the small law office filled with documents, soft light illuminated Maya and Anna's focused faces. Evidence will be our sharpest weapon, Anna said, her voice serious but determined. They began by retrieving the full arrest report from Greenville Police, a document containing many important details that most people overlooked. We need to examine every line carefully to see if there are any errors or intentional omissions, Anna explained. Maya flipped through each page, her eyes weary but focused. Next, they concentrated on the video footage of the incident. A passerby had luckily recorded the moment Maya was stopped and arrested, and the video became vivid evidence proving the unjust and abusive behavior of Officer Jack Reynolds. "This is the key," Anna said while reviewing each frame. "We will use this to demonstrate the police misconduct." However, Maya and her legal team did not rely solely on the video, but also sought additional witnesses present at the scene. Mary Thompson, James Carter, and Linda Brooks, those who had spoken up from the beginning, were invited to give detailed statements confirming the events as Maya described. Another important part was medical and psychological reports documenting the mental and physical trauma Maya suffered after the wrongful arrest. "We need to prove that the arrest was not only illegal, but also caused serious harm to Maya's health and well-being," Anna emphasized. During this process, they faced many difficulties. The Greenville Police Department, backed by a strong team of defense lawyers, tried to delay providing documents while attempting to deny evidence and blame Maya. Some recordings of phone calls between Maya and the police were cleverly exploited to undermine her credibility in court. Anna shared, "This is how the system operates. They will use every trick to protect their members, regardless of the truth." Maya felt pressure not only legally, but also from public opinion. She received threats and harsh criticisms that caused many sleepless nights. But with strong support from family, friends, and the community, Maya refused to fall. One evening during a support group meeting, Maya spoke with a trembling but determined voice. "I am not fighting for myself alone, but for those without a voice. That's why I must be even stronger." The group united, giving her strength and faith. The evidence-gathering process lasted for months, but in the end, they assembled a complete, transparent, and convincing dossier. It was proof of abuse of power, racial discrimination, and violation of Maya's human rights. Anna meticulously prepared each part of the legal file, ready to face every challenge ahead. "We've done our best. Now it's time for the law to speak," she said to Maya, her eyes shining with confidence. Maya held Anna's hand, feeling lighter than ever. Yet she knew the journey ahead remained challenging, especially in the courtroom where everything would be exposed under the light of justice. As Maya Williams' story began to gain widespread attention, the media quickly became an inseparable part of her grueling legal battle. Local and national reporters competed to cover the story, producing emotionally charged and authentic articles and broadcasts. One morning at Anna Martinez's law office, the phone rang nonstop. Anna looked at Maya, her voice full of enthusiasm. "We've made a big impact. The media is an important weapon to pressure for justice." Maya smiled, but her eyes still showed some fatigue. "I know, but sometimes I feel overexposed, like there's no privacy left." Anna gently reassured her, "That's the price of the fight, but we will control the story to serve the goal of justice." The articles focused on details of the case, Officer Jack Reynolds' attitude, the coldness of the police force, and Maya's strong personality and life. Social media became a launch pad for the story to spread, with the hashtag JusticeForMaya, attracting tens of thousands of shares and comments. Many people, not only in Greenville but nationwide, joined discussions expressing support and sympathy for Maya. Some social organizations held online seminars to analyze the case and call for changes in the police system. However, public opinion was not always fully united. There were opposing voices, even criticism claiming Maya was exploiting the media to boost her reputation. Some articles with racist content insulting Maya and her family appeared on anonymous forums, creating significant mental pressure. Maya once shared with Anna, "I didn't expect this publicity to bring both good and bad things." Anna replied, "We must prepare for every situation. The important thing is not to let those harsh words obscure the bigger goal." Meanwhile, local lawmakers and politicians also began paying attention to the case. Some legislators spoke out, proposing reforms in police training and oversight to prevent similar incidents from